From Bloomberg QuickTake, I'm Madison Mills. Bloomberg opinion writer Frank Berry is driving in an RV with his wife Laurel across the country from New York City all the way to San Francisco, and his arrival date is Election Day. He's going to be updating us along the journey and telling us what he learns about voters, what's important to people, and how local officials are responding to everything going on in our country right now. So joining us for an update is Frank Berry. Frank, how are you doing?
Hi, Madison. Doing great. We've made it to Ohio, and we survived driving through downtown Newark and Philadelphia and across Pennsylvania and over the Allegheny Mountains. So far, so good.
Well, thank you for making time to check in with us. Before we talk about what's next for you and what you've experienced so far, I want to give viewers a look into how your journey started. So let's take a look at this video real quick.
Hi, I'm Frank Berry. I'm a writer at Bloomberg Opinion, and I'll be taking this RV across the country on a drive from New York to San Francisco following the Lincoln Highway. The country's in turmoil, and it seems like the right time to go out on the road and to capture the country in this moment, but also to seek out those things that still bind us together and that hopefully will pull us through. The Lincoln Highway was America's oldest transcontinental route that runs from New York to San Francisco. And along the way, it hits a number of major cities, but it also hits tons of small towns, little places that most people have never been to. And we're going to be speaking with people all along the route. And what's business like these days?
Slow.
My wife Laurel and I are going to leave from the heart of the city in Times Square. And the journey will end in San Francisco for us, but we hope that it will also point the way forward. At a time when the country is seemingly more divided than it's been in generations, beset by multiple crises between COVID, racial injustices, and an economic recession that could be as deep as any we've felt in many, many decades. This is very much a journey of discovery. It's a quest. We're not leaving with all the answers. We're not leaving to do all the talking. We hope to get a feel for what the country is going through right now, and to take a little bit of a portrait of America during this time. And so I'll be posting a weekly update, and if you're interested, please post any comments you have, any questions, and I hope you'll come along for the journey.
Frank, I love that line. It's a quest. So I will ask you, what has your quest been like so far?
The quest has been great, and it's a quest for discovery and to learn and to ask questions and to meet people where they are and to try to leave as many preconceived notions and ideas behind. So I've had some really terrific conversations with people along the way.
And I know you've done a lot of work scheduling some amazing interviews and conversations for your column that's running alongside this. Can you take me into some of those conversations? What have been some of the big learnings you've had so far from those conversations?
Sure. Well, my first conversation was really where the Lincoln Highway started, just outside of Manhattan in Jersey City. And I spoke with Mayor Steve Fulop, who's got a real interesting story. He had a job at Goldman Sachs coming out of graduate school and quit after 9/11. To join the Marines and serve the country. And we met actually on 9/11, talked a little bit about the response and how it's the response to 9/11 and how it has differed from the response to COVID. And we also talked about Jersey City is home to a large Muslim population, and they have been the center of controversy as some people have drudged up old allegations that Muslims cheered the attacks of 9/11, which the mayor said is patently false and not a shred of evidence that it is true. And yet those old suspicions have lingered. And in neighboring Bayonne, efforts by the Muslim community to build a mosque had been blocked for many years before they sued and the Justice Department stepped in, and now the mosque can be built. And so we talked a little bit about the challenges of building bridges and of running one of the nation's most diverse cities.
And Frank, in those conversations, what have been some of the learnings that you've taken away from these local officials about how to handle these big problems, right? We've got coronavirus, racial injustice, there's a lot going on. So what have been the biggest kind of lessons you've learned from them?
Well, there's so much going on. And I think in some ways mayors are overwhelmed because they're getting so little help, especially from the federal level. But all of these issues are local at heart. Mayors are in charge of the COVID response. They're held accountable for on issues of racial injustice, and so they are really on the front lines of all of these the challenges, and no easy answers. I had a great conversation with Mayor Jaffer of Montgomery Township, New Jersey. She is the first Muslim woman to serve as mayor in the United States. And she talked a little bit about this group that she's created called Montgomery Mosaic, which is intended to bridge build across communities. And they gather in different houses of worship in different parts of the community and talk about some of these issues. So she said that when they've done it before, they get a group of, maybe 100 people, and she'll ask for a show of hands. How many of you have been in a synagogue before? How many of you have been in the mosque before? And she says that most of the hands don't go up. And so even just that sense of place and bringing people together in places that are outside their comfort zone, she said has been helpful in creating some of these connections and holding some of these difficult conversations that I think people feel inherently uncomfortable with.
And Frank, what's next for you on this journey? I know you've got a lot booked, and some of it is going to kind of run alongside your column here. But if you could just give us a little sneak peek about what you're most excited about for the week to come.
Sure. Well, we had a great trip through Pennsylvania, and I'll be writing about that this week, starting in Philadelphia, where there's a homeless encampment just outside the Philadelphia Museum of Art, which is the Rocky Steps. And the city is struggling with how to deal with that. I had a great conversation with a guy who is the leader of a band many people on this stream probably know, called Lo Katani. They've become a little bit of a streaming sensation, but his songs have songs focus on the underdogs and have a socially conscious bent to some of them. And so we talked a little bit about what drives those songs and people's need for music during all of this turmoil and sense of crisis. So it's a little bit tangential, but I think still really important. And so we're going to be trying to cover some of those issues that or aspects of life that may not be in the news every day, but that I do think are important to the way people relate to the way that they are experiencing life and their communities.
You've got a lot of ground to cover, Frank, so we don't want to take too much of your time because you've got to get all the way to San Francisco. But I'll remind our viewers that we will be checking in with you every week. But before we let you go, I just want to know what it's been like in this tiny RV with you and your wife as you're both working from home on the road.
It's been great, actually. We've taken to it. And I mean, maybe we came from a one-bedroom city apartment and are used to being in tight quarters. It hasn't been that much of an adjustment, but it's been really good. We've been learning all the ins and outs of an RV, which there's more to it than I realized. And we've screwed some things up and had some trouble getting things to work. But for the most part, it's been going really well.
And I read in your column that was posted this morning that you had some challenges finding parking, and with your refrigerator, what has been the biggest obstacle that you hadn't necessarily anticipated?
Well, parking's definitely been an obstacle, and Lincoln Highway goes through the hearts of towns and big cities. So I had a friend from Philadelphia email me after the column ran and said, "I can't believe you drove into South Philly with an RV." But that's where the highway goes, so that's where we're going. And we've scraped a few trees along the way and overhanging branches, but we've managed to come out of it, and we'll see how it goes from here.
And Frank, one final question for the viewers who are just joining our stream here. What's your main goal for this trip? What are you hoping to get out of this?
We're hoping to get to listen and to give people an opportunity to say what's important to them. And in doing that, to, I hope, draw out of them a little bit about what they believe is important to the future of the country and what binds us together as a nation when we're in the midst of all of this division. And I think there's tons of focus on it, rightfully so, politically, culturally, racially. There's a lot of deep divisions that are challenging, but we also want to learn a little bit more about ourselves in the sense of what is it that holds us together. And so along the route, we've been asking people that question and getting some interesting answers. And it'll be interesting by the end of it to see where there's some overlap and see what the more creative and outlying ideas are.
Well, we are very excited to get to check in with you here every Monday and hear what you're learning from the road and kind of experience this journey alongside you. So thank you for making the time, Frank. And for those of you watching, please come back every Monday and follow Frank's journey along with us here. You can follow Bloomberg QuickTake for all of your news on all social platforms. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.